I've sometimes been attracted to writing very short poems in sequences to get glimpses of things and different fragmented angles. And I'll read from a group of 12 poems begun around the time of 9/11. I was inspired by Kipling's Just So stories, how the leopard got its spots, how the elephant got its trunk, that kind of thing. I tried to apply this to a world situation, and each of the titles begins with how. How the world split in two. Was it widthways or lengthways? A quarrel with the equator? Did the rawness of the inside sparkle? Only this is true. There was an arm on one side and a hand on the other, a thought on one side and a hush on the other, and a luminous tear carried on the back of a beetle went backwards and forwards from one side to the other. On the edge of things can be quite a positive place to be. And growing up, I felt that I was a little bit in between the Pakistan of my birthplace and England where I grew up. I would like to be a dot in a painting by Miro. I would like to be a dot in a painting by Miro. Barely distinguishable from other dots, it's true, but quite uniquely placed. And from my dark centre, I'd survey the beauty of the landscape and wonder, would it be worthwhile to roll myself towards the lemon stripe, centrally poised, and push my curves against its edge to get myself a little extra attention? But it's fine where I am. I'll never make out what's going on around me, and that's the joy of it. The fact that I'm not a perfect circle makes me more interesting in this world. People will stare forever. Even the most unemotional get excited. So here I am on the edge of animation, a dream, a dance, a fantastic construction, a child's adventure, and nothing in this tawny sky can get too close or move too far away. Well, I've always been attracted to surrealism when writing poems, partly through the images in dreams and that glimpse that they give us of the life of the imagination. Also have always very much enjoyed writers such as J.G. Ballard and Angela Carter and wanting to bring something of that to poetry. Pakistan always felt like a fantasy in itself, and so that really added into that general theme. And being at a distance from Pakistan as a child allowed me to imagine its gorgeousness, really, as well as other aspects. I was raised in a glove compartment. I was raised in a glove compartment. The gloves held out limp fingers. In the dark, I touched them. I bumped against the first aid tin and rolled on notepads and maps. I never saw my mother's face. Sometimes her gloved hand would reach for me. I existed in the quiet. I listened for the sound of the engine. Growing up in England, I fantasised about my birth having taken place so far away in Pakistan. I suppose people didn't go abroad for their holidays as much then in the early 1960s, and Pakistan seemed like somewhere I might never actually get to. The sari. Inside my mother, I peered through a glass porthole. The world beyond was hot and brown. They were all looking in on me, father, grandmother, the cook's boy, the sweeper girl, the bullet with the sharp shoulder blades, the local politicians. My English grandmother took a telescope and gazed across continents. All the people unravelled a sari. It stretched from Lahore to Hyderabad, wavered across the Arabian Sea, shot through with stars, fluttering with sparrows and quails. They threaded it with roads, undulations of land. Eventually they wrapped and wrapped me in it, whispering, "Your body is your country." When I was a young teenager, the strangeness of the Pakistani side of my background was brought home to me via the presents that my Pakistani aunts sent. These were often very elaborate clothes, the kind of thing that Pakistani girls would wear for a wedding or a special occasion. I'd never seen an ordinary sari or an ordinary shalwar kameez, and so I thought that all Pakistani clothes were like this, very exotic. I had mixed feelings about them. I used to love to admire them from a bit of a distance, but I felt very strange wearing them, rather as if I was wearing fancy dress. Presents from my aunts in Pakistan. They sent me a shalwar kameez, peacock blue, and another, glistening like an orange split open. Embossed slippers, gold and black, points curling. Candy-striped glass bangles snapped, drew blood. Like at school, fashions changed in Pakistan. The shalwar bottoms were broad and stiff, then narrow. My aunts chose an apple green sari, silver bordered, for my teens. I tried each satin silken top, was alien in the sitting room. I could never be as lovely as those clothes. I longed for denim and corduroy. My costume clung to me, and I was aflame. I couldn't rise up out of its fire, half English, unlike Aunt Jamila. I wanted my parents' camel skin lamp, switching it on in my bedroom to consider the cruelty and the transformation from camel to shade, marvel at the colours like stained glass. My mother cherished her jewellery, Indian gold, dangling, filigree, but it was stolen from our car. The presents were radiant in my wardrobe. My aunts requested cardigans from Marks and Spencer's. My shalwar kameez didn't impress a school friend who sat on my bed, asked to see my weekend clothes. But often I admired the mirror work, tried to glimpse myself in the miniature glass circles, recall the story how the three of us sailed to England. Prickly heat had me screaming on the way. I ended up in a cot in my English grandmother's dining room, found myself alone, playing with a tin boat. I pictured my birthplace from 50s photographs. When I was older, there was conflict, a fractured land throbbing through newsprint. Sometimes I saw Lahore, my aunts in shaded rooms, screened from male visitors, sorting presents, wrapping them in tissue. Or there were beggars, sweeper girls, and I was there, of no fixed nationality, staring through fretwork at the Shalimar Gardens. The poems in this collection, Europa, are all really based around trauma. And here we have the trauma of rape, inspired by this cover picture, a painting by the American artist Tabitha Vivas. The painting's called When We Talk About Rape, which is poignant as often we don't. Mermaid. About human love, she knew nothing. I'll show you, he promised. But first you need legs. And he held up a knife with the sharpest of tips to the rightness of her emerald tail. She danced an involuntary dance, captive, twitching with fear. Swiftly he slit down the muscular length, exposing the bone in its red canal. She played dead on the rock, dead by the blue lagoon, dead to the ends of her divided tail. He fell on her, sunk himself deep into the apex. Then he fled, on his human legs. Human love, cried the sea in her head.